Good morning. Over the weekend, we had some significant developments that unfolded in the US-China trade landscape. Yesterday, after extensive negotiations in Geneva, both nations agreed to a 90-day truce in their ongoing... in their ongoing trade war. So this agreement entails a substantial reduction in tariffs. The US will lower its tariffs on Chinese goods from 145% to 30%, while China will reduce from the US goods from 125% to 10%. So initially the markets reacted positively to this news. Who could have told you on Sunday that we would spike up before down? I wonder. Anyway, Bitcoin surged, reaching highs near 106K, aligning with the prediction that I shared in my Sunday update. But the optimism was short-lived as details emerged that this was merely a temporary pause without a comprehensive deal. The market sentiment shifted after that and Bitcoin retraced to around 102K. And we're going to check the charts now to see if there's a further drop coming to my lower target that I mentioned on Sunday of around the 100K region. Now, the 90-day pause introduces a period of uncertainty, which is the problem. That's going to keep the markets on edge as we await further developments. So today, I'm going to quickly examine how the traditional markets like the S&P and NASDAQ responded to the news. And then after that, I'm going to go into some altcoin charts, which I know is what you're all interested in. We're going to analyze some potential entry zones and also identify if there's any still kind of danger zones right now. But we're looking for decent pullbacks and we're looking for those pullbacks to hold good zones on higher time frames and create those higher lows before we get involved. But I also see some potential short-term day trade opportunities for today. So I really want to get into that. Let's go have a look at the charts. Now, before I start rambling on, if you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. I'm Annie. This is Trade Travel Chill. And be sure to hit that like button nice and early because it really does help me get my videos around the internet. Thank you guys for all your efforts in helping me get to 60K. It's a long, slow grind, but I'm here and I'm doing it. So I can see you guys all in the chat. I'm going to try to get through altcoins. I know that that's what everyone's interested in, but I have to get through Bitcoin first because Bitcoin basically predicts everything else. So I just want to quickly go through now the method that we trade on this channel and how it's playing out so far. As you can see, early last week, we had the W formation that ended up creating last week's low of the week. We can easily identify our 3-level rises from there, and that took us into the weekend trap. Now, this here was the spike high that I mentioned was a possibility on my Sunday update. You can see here this kind of drawing here. So that was the movement that I was expecting to open the week, even without any news. And that's what happened. We got the spike high and then now we're coming down. So here's what happens after. That's called false move week beginning if you've never heard of it. Let me keep an eye on these chats that are going on here. Actually, I'm going to move this over here so I can see your comments a lot more easier. So, okay, so after you get the false move week beginning, let me go to the 15-minute time frame because it's going to allow us to dissect this a lot better. So when we go to the 15-minute time frame, this is your weekend trap here, okay? It starts at the Friday US close and it goes until the dead gap zone, which opens Friday 5 p.m. New York. So usually the weekend trap is consolidation. We don't tend to trend. This weekend, altcoins did trend. Of course, obviously, it's not going to be the same every single weekend, but we'll get to altcoins later. Once you've identified your box, that's when you're looking for a false move outside of the box when the weekend opens, because that false move is just stopping out weekend traders. So in this case, this weekend, we can see that the false move stopped them out to the upside, meaning that what it did was trigger long positions. So people who have breakout trades above resistance, they got triggered into longs, and it also would have liquidated or stopped out short positions because most likely their stop losses or their liquidation points would have been somewhere in this zone. And what we can see here, I kept some of these old liquidations so I can show you proof that I'm not lying. This is what happens. See right here, this line here that says 154 million to be liquidated at 105,784. And when you line that up, that is exactly where this candle spiked into. So it spiked into that, liquidated people, then did a sharp reversal on us. And all of this was, you know, initial tariff news came out, everyone got excited, then they saw the reality of it, which was that it wasn't a deal, it was a agreement to a 90-day pause, and they went, that's not what we want to hear, and so they sold off. So the news is always the excuse. The charts tell you what's going to happen well and truly before the news comes out. I often cop a lot of flack on Twitter when things like this play out as a result of news, and people say, oh, you couldn't have known. The moral of the story is I didn't need to know. I just need to know this trading strategy, and it works, and that just proved it right there, because like I said, this was shown to you on Sunday before we had any news come out, and it played out exactly like that. So it's worth getting great at this method. I'll let you know that for sure. Now let's talk about what happens following it. Once you can identify the false move that opens the week, generally you'll get, now this is on a small time frame, so what I'm about to tell you will happen on a 15-minute or a 5-minute time frame. Can differ, and you have to get an expert at knowing which time frame to be paying attention to. Again, that comes with time and experience. You can't rush that. But what tends to follow is 3 high volume moves in the opposite direction. So we have the spike high, which means we're looking for the 3 high volume moves to the downside, and that will play out over the rest of the sessions on Monday, and it depends on how quick it plays out. So if it plays out fast, then you're looking for trend reversals either over Asia to UK changeover. Yeah, you guys can see that. Or UK to US. And if it plays out slow, it can happen the next day. It can happen into Tuesday, which is today, which is why I'm live streaming, because I know when altcoins took off over the weekend, a lot of people felt like they missed out on their entries. And we need to be looking now to see if we're going to get any further downside, to wait for those retracement entries, or are we going to have a very shallow retracement and you guys should be getting in now. So that's why I'm here. If you are, I don't know, grateful for that, smash that like button, let me know. Because yeah, I don't go live very often. It's because I say too much. But anyway, moral of the story is, the 3 high volume moves. So did we get them? Yes, we have one here. You can see when I say high volume, we're looking for the vector candles to change color. We're looking for red and we're looking for magenta. Magenta is not as high volume. Ideally, you want them red, but magenta still kind of counts. And especially if you see magenta towards the end of them, it shows a slowing down of the momentum to the downside, which is a good sign. So we can count that we had one here, and then we had another one through here, and then we had our third one through here. So we ticked all the boxes. Now, in addition to that, just to add confluence and strengthen your argument, you want to see if it's on the way down, if it's taken out liquidity, just like it took out the liquidity up here. We want to see if it's then come back to take out the liquidity to the downside. And if I go back to the 1 hour time frame, these 2 here were the 2 targets on my Sunday video should we have reversed, which turns out we did. And so the first one was at about 101,930, which was this one right here. And we did take that out on the spike down. There was another one here. I don't know when it showed up, but anyway, moral of the story is it took that and it did a beautiful retest of the 1 hour 200 EMA. Now it hasn't yet taken the lower one. And so that's why today on a Tuesday, after the false move is over, you have to reassess to start looking at the probability of, will it come down to take more liquidity from the downside? In which case on your altcoin entries, you might get better prices. Or is all the damage that they wanted to do already done and we're going to shift out from here? So let's stick on the 1 hour time frame for a second, because this, in order to work this out, it's multi-time frame analysis, which is why it can get complicated and it can take time to kind of understand this method, which, by the way, if you do want to understand this in detail, you should definitely consider becoming part of Trade Travel Chill. I can see a lot of our members in the comments right now. So guys, share your journey. And if you're learning something from being part of our community, let people know. But this is the kind of deep dive analysis that my team does multiple times daily to help our students learn the system and be able to trade and make decisions for themselves. We don't want you copying us. We want you to be independent traders. So staying on the 1 hour time frame, this is where I have to be cautious because we are still currently under the 50 EMA. So what we have a risk of is this. Let me just explain. I explained to you the 3 moves to the downside that happened on a Monday after the false move, right? The other thing that happens is that those 3 moves can go straight into the 3-day swing. Now, the 3-day swing is what I talk about a lot on this channel, and it's one part of the entire trading strategy. And what your job to do on a Tuesday is to figure out if that trend is going to continue into Tuesday and Wednesday before we get our midweek reversal, which we expect to happen on a Wednesday or Thursday, usually lined up with a news event, right? So this is your #1 goal for Tuesday, especially around now, around the UK session. You want to be making that decision. So when I look at the 1 hour time frame, here's the risk right now. The risk is that when I follow the rules of this trading strategy, the 50 EMA initially broke on the 1 hour time frame with a high volume vector. That is usually step 1. And once it breaks, it goes to the 200 EMA. Now you can see that is exactly what happened. From there, we expect it to come back, to retrace back to the 50 EMA or to consolidate and the 50 EMA catches up. We can see that that is what price is currently doing. So if I was to only look at the 1 hour time frame, I right now would be waiting for a rejection of the 1 hour 50 EMA, and I would expect that we're going to, well, not expect, I would be looking for signs that we're not going to break that 50 EMA and we're going to head down for the 1 hour time frame level 2. And if that were to happen, that would give me most likely my second target from Sunday. And then we have to reassess from there because we would then expect a third one because we would then be very sure, and he swings a lot, Alan, we would then be very sure that we're in the 3-day swing. So right now we're not sure. Right now we're investigating. Okay, that's the difference. So now that I have this higher time frame, as in the 1 hour, in mind, I want to go down time frames to then challenge that thought. Okay, so now let's go down to the 15-minute. And I identified to you earlier the 3 drops that I saw on the 15-minute that tested the 800 EMA. Great. Now what you do is very simple. That move to the downside finished again in a high volume vector candle. Now, if you're not a part of TTC, I don't know what's wrong with you, but no, only joking. I understand, it's fine. But what you can do, because this indicator is a custom indicator that you get as part of the TTC membership, and it's got all these other features that marks out all the important levels that you need to know and everything like that. But just as a starting point for you to get used to trading this system, you can add an indicator that gives you this same colored candles. And I'm just going to show that to you quickly before I go on. If I can remember what it's called, and the people who create it are going to kill me. It's this one here, PVSRA Candles Auto Override. You'll see that we created it, Trade, Travel, Chill. That's a free version. Obviously, it's not as good as the one that our members get, but it's enough for you to sort of dip your toe into this method if you're trying to learn online off my YouTube videos. So that will color your candles like this. And you need to know this because this tells you where the high volume spikes come in, and the high volume spikes are such a big spike in volume that it can only be the market maker that does that, right? And we want to follow what the market maker does. We don't want to follow what retail does. So moral of the story is after our 3 spikes down, we got that high volume vector, which should end the momentum of that direction. In this case, the direction was down. So that becomes very simple. What you do then is you simply mark that candle that created the low, and that becomes your area of interest. right? And so what you're waiting to see after that to get a hint if the move is over and we're going to go up from here, or if we're going to trend down for another 2 more days, today and tomorrow, at least potentially into Thursday, is you want to now see if we come back to revisit that zone, what happens. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but if you are a member, then you will know what this all means that's happening on the inside right side. That's pretty obvious. But we want to see when the candle returns into this candle right here, what happens at the top of it, the middle of it, and the bottom of it. Okay, so if it comes into anywhere between the top and the middle, which is this dotted line right here, that's where we're looking for signs that buyers are stepping in. So what is the sign? The sign is a hammer usually. It can be any, which is this sort of candle right here. It can be a hammer, it can be consolidation, it can be a railroad track, it can be a star formation. What else can it be? That sort of stuff. Like, you can go to Google and ask for a cheat sheet on reversal candles and just follow that, because that's what you're looking for here, right? So what we can see is that as price came back down into this vector candle, we got it. We got what we wanted. And if you're an aggressive trader of this system, that's where you would take your long position. So you'd already be long currently, but there is a high chance that the rest of this trade won't play out. You know that if you decide to take aggressive entries. The other thing then is you're going to expect that price will shift out following that and break the 50 EMA again with high volume. And then which it did here, but once it does that, its next step is to then break the center peak of the W. Now, this is its biggest challenge, right? And that's why this is an aggressive entry that can fail a lot. And so you just have to be aware of that. There is a conservative entry, which I will get to. So again, in this case, the center peak of the potential W was created by a vector as well. So again, it's very easy now to say, okay, if this W is going to validate, it needs to get back above this vector. Coincidentally, that's also where the US settle was, which it's closed now, but obviously this is a strong area. Now, the US settle is where the last candle closed on Friday US session, which is similar to what people call a CME gap, okay? So you can just go and see it on the CME chart if you want, but so that we can have everything on one chart over here, our amazing indicator developer who's in the chat, Theo, he coded it in just to make life easier for our traders. So we know that if price comes back to this settle, it's somewhere around about the CME gap. It's, you can match it up to be exact, but you pretty much get your clarity once price comes back there. So it's interesting to me. Now, look, it closed the gap technically here on Monday, so it's out, but it's interesting to me that that's currently acting as a resistance. And therefore, if this W here is going to play out, that will then confirm that there are no more further drops to come and that this is the W formation that's going to change the trend. If it rejects here, then this isn't the W and this is just a retracement for the 1 hour time frame level 2 drop. I hope this is making sense, this multi-time frame analysis. So the key here is now that if we're going to have upside from here, we absolutely have to get back above the 15-minute 200 EMA at a minimum. And ideally, I want to see that happen with volume, because if we can get back above the 200 EMA on that 15-minute time frame, we've got this red vector candle here was a high volume area. So it needs to come back into there. And look at this. If it comes back in to around halfway, remember I told you halfway of a vector is a very important area, it will break the 200 EMA. So that will then give you more confidence. So if you want to be a conservative trader, you would not be in a long position yet because you don't have proof of the move. So you would be waiting for it to come up, break through, get like to around halfway of this vector, then it will retrace back, and it might retrace back to test 50% Asia. My 50% Asia is currently at about 102K. That then would be a confirmed change in trend, and that would confirm to you that we're not in the 3-day swing to the downside. We were only in the Monday false move, and now we're recovering from this point forward. So that would be then where you would start taking more conservative entry long positions. You'd feel a lot more confident. But if it just did it from here, I wouldn't be confident, because this right here is a lower high in comparison to that. And it's not completing the second side of the W just yet. So if this was the highest we got, you would actually remain bearish. And that is where you would start thinking, we're coming down more, right? Now that's currently turning into a railroad track itself, right? So the key now is to wait to see how this follow through happens. Keep an eye on the UK session. And if it continues down, then we are in the 3-day swing and we're going to have further downside to come. Not that I think that should be a problem, because Kez says, I ain't ever leaving TTC. So that shouldn't be a problem, because if obviously altcoins ran a lot more over the weekend than Bitcoin did. So therefore, because it shifted out, well, the good ones, let's be honest, the good ones ran a lot more. Because they shifted out so much, if Bitcoin was going to give us 3 levels down today, let's say until Wednesday, Thursday, they're going to give you really good high time frame pullbacks to get your entries. Before you think about that, I do just want to caution you to one thing, and that is the ETHBTC chart on the higher time frame. Because we've been here many times before. Now, I know everyone's thinking that this is the one, this is the alt season, and I'm right now cautiously optimistic, but I'm also, again, I'm still waiting for proof of that as well. So when we have a look at ETHBTC on the daily, look at this. It has come up once again to reject, at this point in time, the trend line. Now, when it did this, we thought alt season. Every time that ETHBTC has started to have a move up, we've thought alt season. Here, everyone, right? So you can't buy it until the trend changes. As in, you can't buy that the move is changing until the trend changes. So what really needs to happen on ETHBTC now is we've had this move up to the trend line. We need to come back. It's okay if we just consolidate, but we ideally want to come back and maintain structure around the daily time frame 50 EMA. And if we can create a higher low in that zone, that's going to be more positive, where we would expect that we will break out following that, right? So this right here is our area of interest for ETHBTC. If it can't do that, it's going to come back and it's just going to create another lower low. And this is not alt season yet again. So if you aren't positioned because you missed the run on the weekend and you have FOMO and you want to buy alts and you're freaking out and you're thinking you've missed the boat, you haven't, because this absolutely, especially because the major part of the move happened on the weekend, at this point it absolutely could be fake. And I wouldn't really be deploying capital into alts until you get something like this, really against any altcoin that you want to buy, where you have the higher time frame retest that proves the move. So let's go and have a look at some altcoins. We'll have a look at ETHUSD first. So wait, do I really want to have a look at ETHUSD? Probably not. Does anyone care? Let me know in the comments. Do you care about ETH or not? Morning from Marbella. Hey Dean, how are you? Hey Kez. Anna says Tio is great. Shout out. Oh, Theo you mean, yeah. Okay, so let's not worry about ETH, because I want to talk about some better ones. Let's have a look at XRP, for example. So this was a trade setup that I put into the community on the weekend. It smashed right through the take profit range, and now it's coming back for a retest. Okay, so therefore, okay, that was just a day trade that played out. So let's now go and have a look at this on a higher time frame, like the daily. So if you were interested in XRP, first of all, on the higher time frame, yes, it's changed the structure. Hold on a second. It's changed the structure, right? So it's broken out here. It's broken out now, but the retest is going to prove the move. Otherwise, it could turn out to just be yet another false move. So ideally, on something like XRP, you want it, again, to come back somewhere around the 50 EMA. This is such easy analysis when you find good performing, good trending coins where you can identify on a high time frame that there's a vector candle that matches up with an EMA. Now, the higher the time frame you go, the longer it's going to take for you to get that entry. So you do have to have patience. And in the meantime, it absolutely can roll over, in which case, if you haven't FOMO'd in, there's nothing for you to worry about, right? And like I said, we know that this 90-day situation is going to lead to an uncertain market for the next few months. So should we be bullish? We should be cautiously bullish and awaiting retest. So for me, for XRP as an example, somewhere in this kind of zone here where I can see the vectors and it would be above the 50 EMA, actually probably not even there, probably there. That would be an ideal retest zone for me to buy in for this. And when I say this, because I'm on a daily time frame, I'm talking about a swing trade. So I'm not talking about a day trade or, you know, a 3-day swing that we normally trade as day traders. I'm talking about buying something and holding, like, you know, for a few weeks. Let me have a look at what else do I want to show you. Cardano. Now with Cardano, let's go to this one on a small time frame and see what happened here. So we have the same situation where we had the spike high. It was starting to look really good. It was the false move week beginning. We're heading down now, and it doesn't, to me, it doesn't look like it's over. So we don't have a structural change here, right, yet. So could that mean that there's another drop to come before we get it? Yeah, and that's all you're doing. You're just eyeballing where you see the high volume moves to the downside. You're eyeballing if you can see where there is a pivot low, and then that becomes your area of interest, which this, to me, this isn't it, but I'm just giving you an example. But that becomes your area of interest, and if it comes back into here and gives you, you know, you see the buyers turn up, then you get involved. To me, I think Cardano will probably come down another level personally on the 15-minute time frame. What else do I want to have a look at? Let's have a look at Curve. Why aren't any of my drawings showing up? Where did I draw them? Hang on a second. Did I draw them on a higher time frame? Sorry, don't give me meme coins. You've got 100 charts, 100 channels you can watch for meme coins. You should know me better. Okay, Curve as well. See, all of these to me currently look like they do want to come down a little bit more when I look at them on the 1 hour time frame. But also, I don't see it as a problem because look, immediately just mark out your vector and you see how price reacts when it gets into that zone. And then you see if you can identify your 3 hits to the downside. And then if you do, that's your signal to then drop down a time frame to then have a look for the reversal signals. So this may come down a little bit more into this zone, would be great, but also because it has technically done it, right? So the top of that vector candle is the top of these 2 candles here. So this is where you then go down and you have a look on the 15-minute time frame. Is there an area of interest to mark? Yes, there is. See, there's a vector candle right here. Now you're waiting to see how price reacts in that zone. At the top of it, which is right now, if it comes down lower, then at the middle of it is the next one. If it comes to the bottom of it, to me, that's a no trade because there's no trapped traders. So ideally, you're looking at what's going to happen on this one, on Curve, from now into the middle zone of this vector candle here on the 15-minute time frame. And when I zoom out, can I see on the 15 minutes 3 hits to the downside? Yes. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm looking for pivots, and if I don't get it, then again, like I said earlier, I know this is feeding up into a higher time frame. Okay, I can see some of you asking for good coins. So when you ask for good coins, I will do them. So let's have a look at Link. Link is another one where, and so earlier today, this was looking really positive, actually, and I've changed my mind now. So this is why you have to wait, right? So I'll tell you why it was looking positive, because this was looking delicious, but it just doesn't look like it's going to play out. We have this W, potential W, that happened off Link's settle price. It was looking great. Where do you think this lacked for an entry though? It lacked in the fact that it has failed to break the 50 EMA with volume. So now it's caution because look what's happening now. Wait, let me mark it out. The center peak of the W, potential W, created a rejection of the 50 EMA. What's happening right now? A rejection of the 50 EMA. So if this continues, if the 50 EMA continues to act as resistance, then Link's move to the downside isn't done yet. So there's two things. It had a potential amazing setup, but it's failed to break through with volume, which is what we need. So in this, I would, at this point in time, be bearish, expecting further downside. But where I will change that bias and react to a long position would be if the volume comes in to break it. And then, like I said earlier, we get the retest that confirms it, maybe somewhere around 50% Asia, which is $16.38. Something like that would then be where I would flip bullish on this and start to open long positions. Whilst it's under the 50 EMA, I'm remaining bearish. Now, I'm personally not looking to open shorts. I should just be clear about that. I'm not looking to open shorts. I'm looking for these to give me a higher time frame, higher low for long entries. So yeah, there's definitely shorts that you can exploit if you want to day trade. It's just not me. So yeah, so for this, I don't care if it moves down further. All that does is give me a better long entry later with a higher risk to reward. Okay, somebody else said, oh, HBAR. Okay, you know I'm going to say yes if you say HBAR. That's why you said it. So HBAR. All right, let's look at this just quickly on the daily time frame to get an idea of what's going on here. So when we look on the higher time frame, just at a quick, I'll tell you the problem with this so far is that we created this double top on a daily time frame. We've had our one move down, we've had our second move down, we don't have a third. Doesn't mean we're definitely going to get it on the daily time frame, but that's just a caution to be aware of with this one. Now, that's not even a problem though, because if we got a third one down, it's a buy all day, every day, because it's a good coin. Like it's just good. So that would be great. But at this point in time on the daily, it's creating lower highs. So then when I go and assess the 1 hour, it's the same thing. We want to assess, like, can we see early signs of a trend reversal on this? And we had the low of the week. We've had our rise 1, our retrace, our rise 2, retrace, rise 3, probably through here, and this might have been an extension as part of the false move week beginning. So this, on the 1 hour, it doesn't look over to me. It doesn't look over because I'm seeing wicks at the 50 EMA. And again, it's the same as what I said with Bitcoin. If it can get above that and retest, that's where I'll flip bullish on it. Again, see how a lot of these need to get above 50% Asia? It's a very key level for today. If it's rejecting under it during UK, what that means, let me go and show you on the 15-minute time frame. So 50% Asia is where you mark out the highest point that price went in the Asia session, which was up here, and the lowest point that price went in Asia. And then you're looking at about the halfway mark, right? And usually in UK or US, it will come back to retest. So one of those two sessions, it comes back to retest the halfway mark of Asia. And it depends on like what the trend is, but if it rejects there, that's your entry for continuation of the trend. If it breaks and retests, that's your entry for a change in trend. Pretty simple strategy. So therefore, right now we're consolidating at 50% Asia. And if we're going to flip bullish on HBAR, we want to see it get above that. So we want to see some speed come in, get us back above 50%, come back to retest. If you're not already long, that is, then that's where you would start looking for long positions. So that could happen, over the next two sessions today. If it continues to reject 50% Asia, we've got another move down, which again, I don't think is a problem because I'm counting 1. This is on the 15-minute. I'm counting 1, counting 2, and there's potentially a third one to come. Now, where would the third one go? It might take us to 50% of the high and low of the week. And so therefore, at around that level, 0.19, that's where you start looking for those reversal signals again, the W formation, if you get them. Peng says perv bots, ignore them. I am ignoring them. I've not even seen one. Okay, what else? So with Tron, I'll tell you the problem with Tron, even though I like it. The problem with Tron is it's only for, is it? Wait, has it changed? Yeah, at this point, when you look at Tron on the daily time frame, it's only a trade for range traders. So I'll tell you what I did with Tron, which is really quite clever, was I set up a grid bot on Tron, because if you have a look at Tron, now I did this on OKX Exchange, so it's got a very clear resistance at about 0.27. Actually, I think one of my friends did this too, and then she gave me the idea, and then I basically copied her. But it's got a resistance at 0.27 and a support at 0.21. And it's had that since the 18th of December. So it's had that for the whole of 2025. What the hell? So really, you set up a grid bot to short from the top and long from the bottom, and it's just going to automatically take trades between those two ranges until it eventually breaks out. So yeah, look, is it going to break out now? I don't know. But at this point in time, it's just a range. And to me, there's not really, other than longing from support and shorting from resistance, there's no other trade here for me. So it's great for range traders, but it's not great for breakout traders because it's not breaking out. And look, eventually, like if you long from support and it does eventually break out, you're going to be in a killer trade. If you short from here, we are in a bull market, so I wouldn't, you know, unless the bull market ends anytime soon, I wouldn't expect that it's going to break your support. So there's short-term shorts here. There's long-term longs if you can get it to come back to the support once again. But I'm not trying to pick that as a trade. That's why I just set it up as a grid bot. All right, what else do we have? 𝗬𝗍. All right. I know you guys love 𝗬𝗍. And I think I did have some analysis on it. Yeah, I did. So 𝗬𝗍, I had the, well, who cares, because that's in the past now, but it broke out, retested. It's breaking again this major resistance. So what do you do now? We need to see if this holds. Let's have a look at smaller time frames. We'll look at 1 hour, because we want to see now, because we've identified that, is there weakness? Okay, with 𝗬𝗍, this is definitely one to watch. I'll tell you why. Because it's had its 3 moves to the upside, okay? You have the low of the week, rise 1 here, retracement, rise 2 through here, consolidation, that was because of a weekend, rise 3 here, comes up, gives the M formation. So let me not be lazy and actually draw this out. So that's your W, this is your M, okay? So after 3 rises, we expect an M, and the M signals that we're going to retrace. So on the 1 hour time frame now, you're looking for 50 EMA, which is where it's at right now. You're looking for a 50 EMA rejection to see if it's going to come down further. And it just so happens that the 50 EMA is also at today's initial high of the day. So now for a day trade on this, let me show you something else. I'm going to do it on a lower time frame. For a day trade, can we see anywhere that 3 drops have played out on this? And the reason why I say that, because you're like, Anastasia, that makes no sense, because it should have 2 more drops to come on a higher time frame. Yes, but this held support here, okay? And it held the 200 EMA. So this could be bullish at this point in time, which is why I need to investigate more, which is why I need to go down. So from the false move week beginning, can I identify 3 hits to the downside? Yes. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And what happened then? The third one took me to that higher time frame support, and it also gave me a vector which became the area of interest. Did it come back into that zone, and what happened there? Yes, it did. It came back too low for my liking. So if I was someone who was going to take a long position on 𝗬𝗍 back here when it happened, we're talking in the past, I would not have taken this entry simply because I can't see trapped traders. So the whole point of this candle is to trap traders, and then price doesn't return to the whole candle, because if it does, it lets them out of their trade. So because this price came all the way back, it released trapped traders. So therefore, I don't have as much conviction, which that means in a case like this, I'm going to take a a more conservative trade entry instead. And so now, even though I can identify that there is a W there, I have the same problem that I have with BTC, which is that the price now is currently at the center peak and hasn't yet broken it. and it's also at the 200 EMA. So for 𝗬𝗍, there is still right now a high chance that it will break that 1 hour time frame support and head down. And until it can get above its initial high of the day, that would be what you're expecting. Where do you flip and start being bullish on this is, again, if it can get back above the initial high of the day, change the structure. It's got to create a higher high, in comparison to this, and then come back for a retest. And that retest actually has a fair few places that it can retest. It could retest the initial high of the day. It could retest the 50 EMA, which would be like, would do something like that. It could also retest 50% Asia. The lower it retests, the better, because the bigger risk to reward. So I wouldn't really worry too much about that. But this is what I would be looking for on 𝗬𝗍. I am bullish on 𝗬𝗍, but I don't have the chart to tell me that that's right now. So this is the exact play that I'm looking for. And ideally, I'd love to get a 50% Asia. But if it turns out to be super bullish, I'm not going to get that low. So keep an eye out for all three levels and be ready to react. You know, actually, one thing you can do if you do get the breakout is let's just pretend price breaks out and goes to here, okay? Just for the purpose of doing an example, you draw your fib on it and then you can just stagger your orders. Look, this one's going to line up, well, if it goes to our example, which is 50% of the high and low of the day, it's going to line up with 61.8, the 50, and somewhere around the 38 as well. So you can just stagger orders. That's how I do a play like this. I don't wait for one exact price to get in. I just put 3 different orders at 3 levels and see which one hits. And that way I don't have to sit here and watch charts all day, which I'm allergic to. All right, what else do you want? What's the time? Oh, guys, 43 minutes have passed already. Are you having a good time? If you are, be sure to smash the like button. I don't like streams to go on for too long, so I will do one more. And also, let me know in the comments if you personally are bullish or bearish right now. Solana, I don't like. Marianne, sorry if I said your name wrong. I don't like it right now because last I looked, it created a lower low. So it wasn't ready for me to start looking for this setup yet. What else? Guys, no meme coins. I'm just looking for a good one. I'm looking for a good one. Give me a good one, guys. ONDO. Okay, let's do ONDO. Do I have it here? Yes, I do. ONDO was the same as Link. So keep an eye on it because, again, we've got the W on it, but we're not breaking the 50 EMA and we're not getting above ONDO settle. So I won't go through the setup again. ONDO, we already had the trade on it somewhere. I've gotten rid of the entry, but it hit our take profit. And so that trade was done. Now we're looking for a new one. But again, it's got to get back above the 50 EMA and retest if you're going to flip bullish. Currently, it's struggling there. So if it continues to struggle, we would expect that it's going to come down even more. But I hope not. I hope not, because the setup looks decent for a day trade. I can see the 3 hits to the downside. I can see the W. Like 𝗬𝗍, I don't like that we haven't trapped traders. So that's why I have to remain bearish until I can see that structural change. All right, guys, I'm going to leave you guys there. If you enjoy live streams, let me know, because as you know, I don't do them all that often. But, you know, look, if we are going to head into some really good trading scenarios where we're going to have some liquidity and we're going to have some nice trends and some good 3-day swings, I'm happy to do more live streams to help you guys get the entries, because when the market's good, we've got to take advantage, you know. So be sure to let me know. You can do that by leaving comments and hitting the like button and hitting subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I will see you guys on the next one. Trade safely and yeah, take care out there.